Hello, Dr. Croom and whoever else stumbles upon this video. I am Kate Koeckritz. I am a third year cognitive science major at UC Merced, and this will be my final teach back for COGS 180, which is Embodied Mind and Language. Um, so due to COVID times, this is our final project. Hopefully you learn a little something. If you're just stumbling upon this video on YouTube. But today we are going to be talking about the brain has a body. So this idea that the brain is not solely responsible for all of how we process and you think. We rely more on our body, our sensory systems, our environment, and that all combines and interacts with each other to create cognition. So we're gonna first start off with a quote. Oh, I'm recording outside, so I'm sorry if there is any background noise or anything. If an airplane flies by, hopefully not. But yeah, just an explanation there. So this quote is from the main article that we learned most of this information from. That article is "The Brain Has a Body. Adaptive behavior emerges from interactions of nervous system, body, and environment." And that is by Cheel and Beer. So the quote from that is adaptive behavior can be best understood within the context of the biomechanics of the body, the structure of an organism's environment, and the continuous feedback between those three: the nervous system, the body, and the environment. Okay, so some key concepts. So the definition of adaptive behavior. So behavior that enhances the survival and reproduction of an animal. So the basic behaviors, yeah, survival, reproduction, eating, things like that. And then we also have this idea of sensory pre-processing. So the ability of the body to filter and amplify specific inputs, which is a really important thing that we are going to go over on the purple pink part of this slide. And then embodied cognition. This kind of is a bigger idea than just the brain has a body. It's Embodied Mind and Language is the name of the class that we're taking. So, but just for some background, embodied cognition refers to the cognition and that involves the acting physical body with the environment in which the body is immersed. So again, all the cognition, the brain, the body, and the environment. So processing of inputs and outputs from the nervous system. So the body processes inputs to and outputs from the nervous system. So it also post-processes the outputs. So one cannot simply peel away the body to understand the nervous system's role in adaptive behavior. So the example that Cheel and Beer give us is that when animals that must discriminate sounds whose wavelength is small relative to their body size, they take advantage of measurements of pressure differences, utilizing whole body structures to provide additional phase and amplitude information. So utilizing those whole body structures is the key idea from that example. We are taking information from all different types, all different systems, and having their interconnected in order to produce a sort of behavior that we are looking for. Another key idea through this is evolution and development. So certain things in our body, they evolve and they develop together. So like the nervous system and the periphery, they have co-evolved and developed together during the life of an animal. So there's extensive matching between their properties. Changes in behavior over evolutionary time are associated with coordinated changes in both the periphery and the nervous system. So another example that Cheel and Beer give us is that the anterior and posterior canals of our vestibular system are oriented vertically in order to be sensitive to vertical movements, essential for balance. So this suggests that the change to bipedal locomotion was coordinated with a change in the sensory apparatus for balance, which is really interesting once you think about it. Like, we're literally evolving and developing together. I apologize for that noise. So periphery, the close matching between the nervous system and the periphery creates, because of this, it creates both constraints and opportunities for the nervous system. So some of those opportunities include that the properties of the periphery can simplify complex neural processing and control problems, which is great. And then some of these properties offer significant simplification for neural control. That being said, there are some constraints. So the nervous system cannot process info that is not transduced by the periphery. It cannot make command movements that are physically impossible for that periphery. And then also body plans of certain animals definitely affects the kind of movements that it can generate. So, pretty obvious. But of course, there's always going to be some good with some bad. Um, when talking about our body. Another main thing that goes into this is the idea of continuous feedback. So the most important evidence suggesting that the nervous system cannot be the exclusive focus for understanding adaptive behavior is that it continuously receives and responds to feedback, both from the movements that it induces in its own periphery and from the surrounding environment. So feedback from movement contributes to normal neural development. In adult animals, proprioceptive feedback plays a fundamental role in the generation of normal patterns of motor activity. In the absence of feedback from an animal's own movements, the nervous system may not generate meaningful activity patterns for behavior. So feedback from the environment and the dynamical properties of the environment itself also play a vital role in the generation of adaptive behavior. I also added a figure that was given to us in the article. I really like how it shows that the nervous system, the body, and the environment, they're all interconnected, relying on each other. Um, it's also important because we're going to see it later. Yeah. So this idea, right, kind of offers and presents us with these two contrasting metaphors. So the first metaphor is that the nervous system is seen as the conductor of the body, choosing the program and music for the players and directing exactly how they play. Like I was in choir, so conductor of a choir, right? Or there's a second metaphor that says the nervous system is one of the group. So there's no conductor, but just another person. And they're engaged in the improvisation that is music making, right? And their final result emerges from the continued give and take between them. So the evidence that we've talked about so far has all supported the second metaphor. So, adaptive behavior is the result of the continuous interaction between the nervous system, the body, and the environment, each of which have rich, complicated, highly structured dynamics. The role of the nervous system is not so much to direct or to program behavior as is to shape it and evoke the appropriate patterns of dynamics from the entire coupled system. So, one cannot assign credit for adaptive behavior to any one piece of this coupled system. And with anything, this also includes some implications. So, new behaviors might emerge that are properties only of this coupled system. Each system cannot control all aspects of the behavior of the system to which it is coupled. Each system's response depends on its own internal state as well as the perturbations it receives from other systems. Instead of asking what is the neural basis of adaptive behavior, one should ask what are the contributions of all the components of this coupled system and their interactions to adaptive behavior. And then within cognitive science, of course, there is this growing awareness that one must take into account this embeddedness of the brain in the body and the world to understand aspects of cognition. Okay, so now we are going into the outside research that I did. to kind of get more information, kind of get more into, you know, what other studies are including this. So, are including this idea into their, what they're doing. So, I decided to look into more of Cheel, which is one of the authors of the first article that we looked into. So I read their Neuromechanics, an integrative approach for understanding motor control. There were a lot of people on this. The main one, Nishikawa, but there's also Cheel in there. So their main idea was this neuromechanics, which they seek to understand how muscles, sense organs, motor pattern generators, and the brain, and how all of those interact to produce coordinated movement. So the coupling between neural information processing and emergent mechanical behaviors of animals. So the coordinated movement emerges from this interplay among descending output from the central nervous system. So sensory input from body and environment, muscle dynamics, and emergent dynamics of the whole animal. And then there's the feedback from the proprioceptive and visual sensory information that must be integrated with descending feed forward motor output to adjust muscle force, length, and work production to changing limb and body dynamics. And timing delays in the feedback circuits are how the motor response is mediated. This is a lot of jargon, a lot of different technical things, but I thought it was really, really cool. Added the figure in that article as well, but just also seeing the interconnectedness of everything. So, the neuromuscular output, the central nervous system, the, body motion, aerodynamics, the wing dynamics. I just think it was really interesting how they integrated all these different things and everything relies on something else. So that is also, key into the idea that we're talking about. And this is definitely more robotics, mechanical side of cognitive science. So you can see how this idea is relevant not only to the neuroscience or the psychology side of it or the philosophy side of it, and more, actually important in things when you're building things and when you're creating systems, and how you want their behavior to be shown. So I read more of Cheel. So I also read more of Beer. I read the dynamics of active categorical perception and in an involved model agent. So this study did utilize a situated embodied model agent that they created. It was really cool. And its dynamics were analyzed at 3 levels. So the entire coupled brain body environment system, the interaction between agent and environment that generates the observed coupled dynamics, and then the underlying neuronal properties responsible for the agent dynamics. So embodiment emphasizes the role of an agent's own body in its cognition, while situatedness emphasizes the role of an agent's immediate physical and social environment, given that nervous systems and bodies co-evolve with one another and their environment. So the need for a coupled perspective is evident. So from this kind of model agent, they found 2 main things. So the agent's behavior is a property of the dynamics of the entire coupled brain body environment system, and it cannot be attributed to any one subsystem. But if we do seek to go beyond the mere characterization of these coupled dynamics to an explanation of its generation, then we must decompose this coupled brain body environment system into its components and study how their interactions give rise to the observed behavior. So this article also uses the same figure as the one that we saw in the first article, with the body, the nervous system, and the environment all interconnected like that, which I thought was really cool, and it makes sense because they have the same authors. Going more further, there's peripheral perception and top-down embodied cognition. So the body provides a means to not only relieve the need for complex brain-based mental representations, but may act as a physical component similar to non-physical perceptual experience. Now, that's a lot of words to just say that our body is physical, but it can help us to have like non-physical perceptual experience. We can envision ourselves going to the kitchen, getting something to eat, even though without physically doing it. But the fact that we know how that feels is because of our physical body. Synchrony maintained by membrane potential oscillations could allow for top-down efferent information from the brain to the projected to be projected to the body. And then the thalamus plays a functional role in this mechanism by acting as a hub. So it integrates and coordinates corticothalamic activity from sensory and other sites, projecting this coherent activity to sensory receptors of the brain. So the thalamus is like the main, of course, there's the whole brain uses and interacts all the inputs and outputs from all the sensory information. But the thalamus is a key um, part of the brain that acts as a hub to integrate all this information, which allows for dynamic processing and enhanced sensory experience. And then acting and sensing the body. So, internal language that we use can contribute to a sense of our body as a unitary system. Language can help to reshape the way that we implicitly perceive our own body. The human body is a social entity. We shouldn't limit cognitive activity within the boundaries of our body brain system without considering that external support, such as tools, may help augment and revise our body schema. So, like if we're using a hammer at that point in time, it's part of our body schema. So, we do that a lot, not only with, physical tools, but also, technology and things like that. So body ownership is a natural way that the human body develops and integrates a sense of itself as a body. And that the body is the source of the sensations. So each component of the body generates sensory feedback that informs the brain about its sensory state. So the state of the body is not a state that we think of, but in which we directly and bodily are. So that's really interesting, and I'm sure there's many different ways to have different body schemas and different ways we think of our body. But it's interesting to see that language, as well as so many other things, have effect on this. So, what does this mean for cognitive science? So, as we know, cognitive science is a really interdisciplinary field and includes psychology, neuroscience, computer science, philosophy, linguistics, anthropology. I put a little uh, picture down there just to remind everyone of the different parts of cognitive science, and there are subfields upon subfields of things. But I think the main parts that of cognitive science that are relevant to this is computer science and artificial intelligence, the whole neuromechanics and building of robots. The question, is it possible to build a human-like AI without a body? Personally, through everything that we've said, I would say no. It'd be really difficult um, to have a program think the way that we do without having all those sensory systems interplaying and all the environment and things like that interplaying. I think it's a vital part of how we think. And then that also extends to the subfield of philosophy. So, the brain in a vat question, you know, are we brains in a vat? It's like, well, probably not, if unless it was really complicated and wired the body as well into that. And I think if we were just brains and vats, we would think a lot differently without a body, not having this interaction, all this environment, all that things that are happening. um it would be completely different, and we talk about, is that a human experience and things like that. I think there's a lot of different ways in which we can dive into different things for cognitive science regarding this whole idea that the brain has a body. And then future studies. If I were to do a future study on this, or similarly, I would like to expand on, the relationship between music and dance, which this relationship is really similar to language and action. Just how far is our brain connected to our body, and like how we react to dance and how that correlates to all the other sensory systems. I also think having a study that would deprive participants of all but one sense and how that affects their cognition. I mean, obviously it would affect them, but like I would love to deep dive into that. Just have vision and not have smell or hearing or touch or anything. I'm sure that would really impair our cognition in certain tasks and things like that. In regards to participation, I would like there's plenty of studies that talk about the development of children and things like that, but having that children versus adults, I'm sure adults have a pretty different relationship with their body as do children, just because they've been in it for longer. I would like to deep dive into that. There's also the idea of seeing the difference between those with prosthetic limbs and those with natural limbs, if that changes their relationship with their body and the way that it works and everything. I think it would be a really interesting thing to kind of research more into. But that is it for this presentation. Um, thank you all for watching, listening. I hope everyone stays healthy and safe and have a great rest of your 2020. Thank you so much.